Well, a recent survey from Perkbox has revealed that 4 out of every 5 Gen Z workers, yes, 80%, have considered moving jobs after the pandemic. Well, is this a massive resignation, and what can we do to have a massive retention? The study encourages employers to be proactive in retaining and rewarding their employees. For a deeper dive into those findings, we're joined by Perkbox Country Manager Ross McDonald. Ross, great to have you in. Forgive me for saying this, but you and I are a slightly older generation, so we tend to hang around a bit. But were you surprised by these numbers when they came in?
Yeah, you're right. We looked at people who are currently 18 to 25, so they're just joining the workforce. And if you reflect back to maybe your first step in the office, my first step in the office, some things are common. There's a commonality around people looking for a job that's going to fit their needs. But what's really interesting is the way in which Generation Z is much more willing to trade off different things. They're used to choice. They can choose what apps to put on their phone, they can choose what delivery service is going to bring their meal tonight, and they're looking for, again, that trade-off of choice in their workplace. And what they're trading off is money, clearly, but also career development and benefits. And that's particularly where we zeroed in and found that people were willing to change jobs and consider changing jobs to get that basket of choices right for them.
Money was a key influencer, though. I think that was about 43%
That's right,
of this cohort. So, but I can understand that because, of course, you start out and probably, let's just call it the shit kicker job. That's probably the most technical term for it. And then you're looking for your next opportunity as you build your skills. But what about the other things? Of course, we've all sort of been talking about how work from home options are now sort of basically a core part of an offering, that flexibility in the workplace. What are the other things that they're also drawn to?
Yeah, and there's been a change around that pandemic period as well. This is a generation that entered the workforce during that pandemic period. So things that tend to be front of mind for them, there's the career development part, but also work-life balance and well-being. And these are topics, particularly well-being, something that wasn't discussed when I first entered the workforce. Yep. So it was, toughen up, suck it up. Whereas now there's a much more of a willingness to talk about that, and also the sense that employers and organisations need to care for people in that way as well, and offer them resources that people can self-manage their well-being, whether they consider that financial well-being, and you talk about insurance or health sort of benefits, or whether it's physical or mental well-being, those things that are all highly valued by Gen Z.
Now, I have to say there are also some telling details in this in terms of the broader economy overall, because of course we're all mad keen to get back out and around and go shopping and go dining and everything, and we're quite conscious at this point in time that there are issues. One of the numbers that stood out for me was that it was only around about a quarter, 27% of people in retail, catering and the leisure sectors who say they're not happy with they're the least satisfied with their jobs. And mental and financial well-being was a pain point for this particular industry. I'm going to draw a bow here. Do you think we're being the problem as customers in this particular issue, or are there other factors at play?
Yeah, if you look at structurally at that retail leisure sector, obviously they hire a lot of younger workers, so you'll get a large cohort of people in there. And maybe our expectations need to catch up to what those organisations can actually offer today. And I don't know whether you've had that experience, Simon, but reduced service or less things on the menu, or people who haven't quite had the skills. And I think perhaps there's a gap there in career development and mentoring as well. We've sort of lost a group of people out of the industry, and we haven't yet rebuilt in that retail sector and that catering sector. And that was something that, as an industry, that was an outlier compared to the other industries that Gen Z have joined in the last couple of years.
I suppose we've also gone from sort of having great waiters to great apps.
Perhaps,
That's
yes.
one of the solutions along the way.
Lunch
as well.
today, scan the code.
Nearly 9 out of 10, 88%, said it was important that benefits were tailored for them as an individual. This requires a massive rethinking because, I think back to the days when Kerry Packer used to send everyone a very large Christmas hamper. There was one size fits all, everyone got the same thing, and that was the quality. This idea of a more tailored, bespoke experience, that's a pretty big challenge for an employer in terms of just focusing on that.
It can be. Of course, we have a platform where we think we make that choice easier for people because you can choose from a range of benefits. But even if you reflect on your own life journey through careers, at the start of your career, it might be beers after work and the gym membership, that's the chief benefit. But as you grow and mature, then it becomes how are you going to support your family, what are the insurance packages, how do you make that work across the life cycle? And again, this Generation Z is really used to choice and really used to flexibility. and they're rejecting that idea of one size fits all. They're doing it in their working practices, and really benefits needs to get to that place as well.
So this was 1,000 employees born between 1997 and 2012. Phew.
2002, I think.
A little bit, 2012. Little bit too close, I reckon.
Yeah.
But what would your key takeout be from this? What would you say to employers in terms of how they think about this next generation coming through into the workplace? Because the other thing that I think I've noticed is that there is a really strong values-driven aspect to who they are. They want to know that the company they're working for stands for something and has really strong values.
I think that's absolutely true. That came through very clearly, where people wanted to feel connected to an organisation that was doing the right thing. Now, of course, people's versions of the right thing can differ slightly. It doesn't have to be all hugging trees or whatever it might be, but it does need to feel connected to what the individual values, and being able to offer that clear pathway through a culture that drives connection to the organisation is really strong. I think maybe that's one of the pandemic effects. That one of the things that did come up in that Gen Z survey is that there was a group of people, nearly 20%, who were feeling disconnected from their colleagues and the organisation around them. And that's something where, again, that a platform like ours or other digital tools can really help knit people back together in one organisation for a combined purpose.
There's plenty to think about in this, and people can read more about it on startupdaily.net. I was looking at another report today that says something like a third of managers gave themselves a 10 out of 10 on how they perform. So we might have a little bit more work to do on this front. But Ross McDonald, great to have you in from Perth
Simon,
Box.
good to see you.
Thanks for your insights.